It was supposed to be just another quiet afternoon. The sun shone brightly over the peaceful streets of a small American neighborhood. But in just minutes, a simple misunderstanding would spiral into a shocking confrontation that no one would forget. An elderly black man, alone, outnumbered, and bruised, made a phone call, a call that would change everything. Before I take you through this intense and emotional story, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. We bring you real, powerful stories like this that you won't hear anywhere else. Stay with me until the end. You'll want to know what happened when his son, a highly trained Delta Force operative, picked up that call. Mr. Elijah Turner was a retired schoolteacher known in his community for his patience, kindness, and unwavering discipline. At 72 years old, he led a quiet life, usually spent walking around his neighborhood, reading books on his porch, and occasionally visiting the local grocery store on foot. Everyone knew him. Everyone respected him. But on that day, none of that mattered. Elijah had just left his home to buy some fruit for his wife when he noticed a commotion on the corner of his street. Police officers were questioning a group of teenagers, and though he wasn't paying much attention, he walked closer to understand what was happening. As he approached, the officers suddenly turned to him, their voices sharp and filled with suspicion. They demanded to know what he was doing there, why he was approaching, and what was in his pockets. Elijah, calm but confused, tried to explain that he was simply walking to the store. But the officers didn't seem interested in explanations. Perhaps they were already on edge. Perhaps they had made a terrible assumption. Within moments, things escalated. One officer grabbed his arm, and Elijah instinctively pulled back, not in aggression, but in surprise. That's when the situation spiraled out of control. They forced him to the ground, shouting orders he could barely process. His heart pounded, his face scraped the asphalt, and one of the officers struck him, leaving his left eye swollen and purple. He pleaded with them, tried to tell them his name, his age, his address, but it was as if they weren't listening. In the middle of this chaos, a small crowd gathered, horrified, some shouting at the officers to stop, others recording the scene. As Elijah lay on the pavement, the officers barked into their radios, their tones aggressive and dismissive. And then, in the brief moment they allowed him to sit up, he did something they didn't expect. His hands trembling, his voice shaky, he reached for his phone, not to resist, not to escape, but to call someone. That someone was his son. Miles away, Staff Sergeant David Turner was finishing a training session at a restricted military base. David wasn't just any soldier. He was a member of Delta Force, one of the most elite special operations units in the United States military. He had faced dangerous missions in foreign lands, rescued hostages, and survived situations most people would never imagine. But nothing would prepare him for the sound of his father's broken voice on the other end of the line. "Son. I need you. They won't let me go." That's all it took. David immediately understood something was terribly wrong. His training kicked in. His mind sharpened. He quickly located his father's GPS signal through a shared family app, grabbed his gear, and requested emergency leave. His commanding officer, recognizing the urgency in David's voice, granted permission without hesitation. As David sped toward his father's location, his mind raced. His father was not a criminal. His father was not a threat. Yet somehow, he had become a victim of unchecked authority. David had spent his entire life protecting others, but now, he needed to protect his own family. Meanwhile, back on the street, the officers continued to justify their actions to onlookers. They claimed Elijah matched the description of a suspect they were pursuing. But their reasoning began to unravel as witnesses argued back, some even showing them video recordings that clearly contradicted their claims. The tension escalated. More police units arrived. The officers doubled down on their position, refusing to let Elijah go. When David arrived, he wasn't in uniform, but his presence was impossible to ignore. His movements were deliberate, his eyes sharp, and his expression calm yet intense. He approached the officers carefully, introduced himself, and requested immediate medical attention for his father. At first, they dismissed him, until he revealed his military credentials. Even then, the officers remained defensive, insisting they had followed proper procedure. David didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply pointed to the growing number of civilian witnesses, the multiple phone cameras now aimed at the officers, and quietly reminded them that accountability was no longer optional. A higher-ranking officer soon arrived at the scene. Faced with undeniable evidence and increasing public pressure, they reluctantly agreed to release Elijah. Paramedics arrived to examine his injuries, and although the physical wounds would heal, the emotional scars would remain. But David wasn't finished. He documented every detail of the encounter, secured the witness videos, and immediately contacted legal representation. He filed a formal complaint, pursued media exposure, and leveraged his military connections to ensure the case would not be buried or forgotten. Within days, the incident gained national attention. News outlets picked up the story. Advocacy groups stepped in. The officers involved were placed under investigation, and the department faced growing scrutiny. Through it all, David remained by his father's side, not just as a son, but as a relentless protector. He knew that what happened that day was not just about his family, it was about countless others who had suffered similar injustices without anyone to call. His mission now extended beyond the battlefield. It became personal. It became a fight for dignity, for truth, and for change. In the weeks that followed, Elijah received overwhelming support from his community and beyond. Strangers sent messages of solidarity. Former students reached out to express their gratitude and admiration for the man who had once taught them to read, to think, to dream. Elijah's story sparked conversations across the country, about assumptions, about power, about how quickly situations can escalate when fear overrides humanity. But perhaps most importantly, it reminded everyone that even in moments of deep vulnerability, there is strength in reaching out. There is power in making that one phone call. The call that can turn the tide. And as David stood beside his father, he understood that his greatest mission was not the ones he had faced overseas. It was this: protecting those who, without him, might have been silenced. This story is not just about injustice. It's about courage. It's about resilience. It's about the unbreakable bond between a father and his son. If this story moved you, if you believe stories like this need to be told, make sure you subscribe to this channel right now. We bring powerful narratives that deserve to be heard. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in David's place? And don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your engagement helps stories like Elijah's reach more people. If this story resonated with you, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to this channel right now to hear more stories that challenge, inspire, and reveal hidden truths. Your voice matters. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think about what happened to Elijah. Do you believe justice was served? Also, don't forget to hit the like button to help this story reach more people who need to hear it. Share this video with someone who should know that even in the darkest moments, one phone call can change everything. Your support drives this channel forward. Thank you for being part of this community.